Hi, folks. I'm going to talk to you today about your monthly budget, what a monthly budget is, why it's important for you, how to make a monthly budget, and then keep track of that budget over a period of time, like 6 months to a year. Let's start with the basics. What is a monthly budget? A monthly budget is a financial statement that helps you track your income from your primary job. Maybe you have a side gig going on. So it helps you track all that income and also what you're spending money on every month. Now, you don't have an infinite amount of cash coming in. So a budget helps you become realistic about what you're making and what you're supposed to spend it on. It helps you track your money and gives you better control over your financial situation. So let's understand why it's important to make and maintain a monthly budget. There's several reasons for this. Okay? First of all, it helps you become financially aware. You understand where your money is coming from and exactly where it's going. Second, it helps you set goals and allocate your financial resources effectively. Third, it helps you control your expenses. It'll help you cut back on unnecessary spending and maintain fiscal discipline as to where you're spending your money. Fourth, it'll help you manage your debt. It'll help you tackle your existing debt and maybe prevent you from taking on new debt before you've paid off your existing debt. Fifth, it'll help you prepare for an emergency because you can set up an emergency fund to take care of unexpected expenses. Sixth, it'll help you grow your savings. Maybe you want to save some money for education. Maybe you want to save some money for retirement. Maybe you want to save some money to go on a vacation somewhere. So it'll help you do that. And finally, it'll help you stabilize your finances overall. It'll help you achieve a more secure financial future through mindful planning. So let's talk about your spending now. Spending can basically be broken down into three major categories. The first one is what are called your needs. This is basically stuff that you have to spend money on every month, or like your apartment rent or your car payment, your car insurance, that kind of thing. The second category of spending would be on what are called your wants. Your wants are things that you could potentially live without, like the $15 cinema ticket or maybe the $5 latte at Starbucks. These are things that make life more fun to live. But these are certainly items that you could cut back on if you needed to. Okay? The third place where your money has to go is your savings. These are the categories of spending. So your first category is your needs, then you have your wants, and then you're setting aside money for savings for the things that I mentioned earlier, right? Like your retirement savings, maybe your education planning, or maybe you're saving money to go on a vacation sometime. Now, the way to split up this spending is to typically take about 50 to 60% of your income and put that towards your needs, maybe 15 to 20% of your income and put that towards your wants, and then maybe take 15 to 20% of your money and save it. Okay, so obviously this is all going to add up to 100%, of course, but the percentages of these individual categories may vary a little bit, but eventually you want to try and follow those guidelines where possible. 50 for your needs, 15 to 20 for your wants, and about 15 to 20 for your savings. So a budget can basically be viewed as a plan for spending specific amounts of money on specific things without feeling, vaguely uneasy or guilty that you're spending money on things, because you know exactly how much money you have set aside for those things that you want to spend money on every month. Now, it's really important that you have a written budget. You need to have the numbers in front of you in black and white so you can actually keep track of what's going on and have a good overview of exactly what's happening with your money. Okay, so there's several applications out there that'll help you do that. There's a bunch of apps for iPhone, Android. Trying to think of some off the top of my head. There's YNAB. There's one. There's one called Good Budget. There's one called Every Dollar. Empower Personal Dashboard is another one. Pocket Guard. So there's a few out there. Okay, just pick one that suits your needs. Try them out. I think some of them cost a few bucks a month or whatever, but give it a shot with whatever application you think is suited to your needs. Okay, but what I've done for this video is I'm going to show you how to write down a budget and actually capture all the numbers in an Excel spreadsheet. So I've made this spreadsheet so you can see the different categories of spending that I mentioned to you before, right? You've got your needs, you got your wants, and then you got the money that you need to set aside for savings. So you're going to see this budget spreadsheet pop up on your screen here in just a second. So I put this together keeping in mind the income and expenses for somebody making roughly $50,000 to $55,000 a year, somewhere in that neighborhood, somebody kind of starting out. And the way I've organized this spreadsheet is to make things easier for you to understand exactly how these expenses need to be tracked here, all your monthly expenses. So typically, you will have three major categories again in which you want to organize these expenses and your spending. So the first thing is called your fixed expenses. The fixed expenses are things like your rent, your car payment, and things like your car insurance or maybe your phone bill, which typically stay the same every month. They don't go up and down every month. Okay. And then you've got your variable expenses. These are things like that you spend money on, maybe going out to dinner with friends, or maybe go catch a movie or something, or go, participate in some kind of activity like maybe going sailing or skiing or something that week, and spend a few bucks there on that activity, that kind of thing. Okay, so those are variable expenses which can go up and down depending on what you're doing that month. Okay, and then the third category where you're going to put your money is savings, like we talked about before. So there's different categories of different subsections under that savings section, the different things that you're saving money for. You're going to find that your needs generally fall under fixed expenses and your wants under the variable expenses. And then your savings, of course, is savings. That's a separate category. But you'll find that that's generally what happens. Okay. Now, what you want to do is to take your statements and bills for the last 3 months or so, because you want to get an exact figure on what you're paying for different things so you can capture them on a spreadsheet or an app like this. When you look at this spreadsheet, it's basically something called an every dollar budget, which means that you've taken every dollar that you've got coming in as income and you've assigned it to a specific item on the budget. Okay, so I'm going to pop this budget up on your screen now, and you'll see the way it's laid out. So you've got your income at the top, you got fixed expenses, variable expenses, and then your savings. Okay, so your net monthly income is basically your income from your job, and maybe you got a side hustle, working part-time somewhere on the weekend or something. So your net income after taxes comes to, let's say, $3,100 a month. Okay, and then after that, your section on fixed expenses shows you your major expenses like your rent, your renter's insurance, your groceries, car payment, car insurance, how much you want to budget for those items every month. Those are generally what you want to budget as fixed expenses. The next section here talks about variable expenses. This is stuff that you spend money on for entertainment, dining, maybe clothing every month, and then just set aside a little bit of money for miscellaneous expenses, stuff that you don't really expect to come up that month, but you may want to go spend some money on dinner with a friend that's visiting from out of town or something like that. So that's that variable expense section there. And then you've got your savings section where you're talking about your 401k that you set aside at your workplace. Then maybe you're saving for your education fund there, or your vacation travel, things like that. Then maybe you're setting aside a little bit of money in a brokerage account for future stock growth and things like that. All right. Now over to the top right, you're going to see this monthly budget summary section. Okay. So this gives you the sum total of the expenses under your fixed expenses, variable expenses, and what you're putting aside for your savings. So this also all has to add up to an amount that is less than or equal to your total income. That is the only way you're going to make this budget sustainable. Okay, you absolutely have to make sure that you're not spending more than you earn. That is a key consideration in what is called this every dollar budget. Every dollar that you're earning is allocated to an item on this budget, and you want to spend no more than what you've allocated. This pie chart directly below that section just gives you an overview of what you're spending in your different categories. That's the fixed expenses, variable expenses, and your savings. Okay, so again, like I said, you want to try and keep these somewhere between 50 to 60% on your fixed expenses, which generally correspond to your needs. You want to keep them 15 to 20% on your variable expenses, which are your wants, and roughly 15 to 20% on your savings. So that's about what this whole thing should work out to. Obviously, it's going to go up and down a little bit on these different sections based on your specific situation, but that's what you're targeting. Now, once you've written all these expenses down and you have a solid budget in front of you, keep doing that month after month for a period of roughly 5 to 6 months at least. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. This budget then becomes a tool for you to evaluate where you need to cut back and where you may be able to spend a little more money. Okay? So let's say you want to cut back on your fixed expenses a little bit. So maybe you go out and shop for a cheaper phone plan. Maybe you go out and get a cheaper internet plan. Okay? Maybe you shop around for cheaper car insurance. So that's one way of trying to attack your spending on fixed expenses. I would also highly recommend that you be very careful with your variable expenses. Okay? I know it's always tempting to go out and buy that $5 latte at Starbucks every day, but that may not be a good idea. You could maybe consider alternatives. Okay? Or maybe if you're planning to take a road trip somewhere, consider maybe a cheaper hotel for your trip, or maybe drive your own car instead of spending a lot of money renting a car. That kind of thing. So you can get creative with how to cut back on your expenses under these different categories. Now, when it comes to saving, what I would recommend is that you make your saving quote unquote automatic. Okay, which means that if you're contributing to your employer's 401k plan, for example, just have them do that right up front. Okay, just sign up for the 401k plan and just have them deduct the money from your paycheck pre-tax as is done for 401k. So you never even see that money. You don't have that money to spend. It just goes directly into your savings, and it's sitting there accumulating interest, and maybe it's working through the principle of compounding interest. Compound interest works for you, and it increases substantially over a period of time. You may also want to set up separate accounts for like an education fund or maybe a vacation fund, so you're not dipping into one to pay for the other. So these are little steps that you might consider to save a little bit more and also organize your savings a little bit better. Now, as I said before, the key is to make absolutely sure that your budget is sustainable. You cannot spend more than you earn. That is not a sustainable situation, and it'll land you in financial trouble faster than you think. So use the budget as a tool to keep control over your finances, to help you achieve your financial goals, and use it as a solid foundation on which to build your financial future. I hope you found this information helpful. Now put that budget together and go make it work for you.